Number 98, a psalm. Oh, sing to the Lord a new song, for he has done marvelous things. His right hand and his holy arm have worked salvation for him. The Lord has made his salvation known. His righteousness in the sight of the nations. He has remembered his steadfast love and faithfulness to the house of Israel. And all of the ends of the earth have seen the salvation of our God. So make a joyful noise to the Lord, all the earth. Burst forth in joyous song and sing praises. Sing praises to the Lord with the lyre and the sound of melody, with trumpets and the sound of the horn. Make a joyful noise before the King, the Lord. Let the sea roar and all that is in it, the world and all who dwell in it. Let the rivers clap their hands and the hills sing for joy together before the Lord, for he comes to judge the earth. He will judge the world in righteousness and the peoples with equity. All Advent here at Holy Cross, we have been praying the prayers of the Old Testament faithful as they prayed a prayer for Christmas. Now, they didn't call it that yet, but that's what they were praying for. When they prayed that God would go with them, that was the promise of Emmanuel from our Old Testament lesson, Isaiah chapter 7, which was fulfilled in Jesus. When they prayed that God's face would shine upon them, at Christmas, the light of the world came. They prayed that God would rend the heavens and come down, and he did, incarnate in a child at Christmas. And so now that Christmas is here, we're going to wrap up this Advent Christmas series with one more prayer of the Old Testament faithful, a prayer for Christmas, Psalm 98. Except this prayer for Christmas isn't a prayer that Christmas will come. It's a prayer of praise because Christmas has come. And yet Psalm 98 was written long before Jesus was ever born. We can't know for sure how long before, but at least 500 years, if not more, before Jesus was born, which makes this psalm prophetic. That is, even though it was an instant hit in its own day, it was written for us to pray, for us to sing. We who celebrate Christmas from the other side of this historic, miraculous event. The psalm begins, "Oh, sing to the Lord a new song, for he has done marvelous things." Holiday music has been penetrating the radio waves of Spokane since at least the week before Thanksgiving. KISS 98.1 FM, which usually plays a mix of pop music from the 1990s to now, totally flipped its format to holiday music for the season, as did some contemporary Christian radio stations like Shine 104.9. And I've been listening, and I've heard a lot of the same songs. Different artists, same song. And then I read an article last week on NPR, which was titled, "Why Are There No New Christmas Songs?" The trigger for the writing of that article was that Mariah Carey's "All I Want for Christmas Is You" actually, for the first time, hit the top 100 on Billboard's music charts. And it's one of the few holiday songs written in the last decades to do that. But it was written and recorded 25 years ago by Mariah Carey. It took 25 years to get there. And the article's saying it's not that there isn't holiday music being written today. There's lots of holiday albums that are flooding the market. It's that they're not capturing the holiday spirit of people the way the songs of the 1940s and 1950s did. Of the 30 top Christmas songs that are being played this season, 2/3 of them were written in that era, the 1940s and the 1950s. We're talking about songs like "I'm Dreaming of a White Christmas," "Chestnuts Roasting on an Open Fire," "Silver Bells," "Let It Snow, Let It Snow, Let It Snow." So we missed the psalm's invitation to sing to the Lord a new song, for he has done marvelous things. Well, honestly, even all those songs I just mentioned from the 1940s and 1950s that we love so much miss the invitation because they never get around to talking about what the Lord has done. And in fact, a lot of those songs have even outlived their own purpose. For example, one of the most popular Christmas songs that's still on the radio today is Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, written in that era, 1949 to be exact. But you know why it was written? It was written as a poem for Santa Claus to give out to little kids as an advertising campaign for Montgomery Wards. And here we are 70 years later, still singing this advertising jingle for Montgomery Wards, even though Montgomery Wards itself has been out of business for almost 20 years. So if we're going to sing a new song, we're going to sing it about something lasting, something that doesn't come and go. White Christmas has come and go. Ours came and it went. We're not going to get it back this year. And people don't roast chestnuts over an open fire anymore. I can't even remember when in my life I've seen a chestnut, much less tasted one. But the salvation of our God is here to stay. It has come in Jesus. It does not come and go. The psalm says the Lord has made known his salvation, his righteousness in the sight of the nations. He has remembered his steadfast love and faithfulness to the house of Israel. And all the ends of the earth have seen the salvation of our God. The ends of the earth have seen it. My wife works at Whitworth University. And to celebrate the holiday season on their website, they have put some of the traditions, holiday traditions, of their students who come from different places around the world. And so one of those students is Ada. She's from Nigeria. Her family on this night eats chin-chin and zobo. And they set off fireworks. But they do it all in celebration of Jesus after they come home from Christmas Eve worship services. And then there's Teresa. She's from Zimbabwe. And she lives in a family of mixed religion. Her mother practices the traditional tribal religion. But her father is a Christian. And so one year her mother plans to celebrating, the next year her father does. And her father's here. They go to Christmas Eve worship in her native language of Shona, and they celebrate Jesus' birth with dancing and drums to the ends of the earth. This salvation that the Lord has made known, this lasting salvation, is from everyone to the ends of the earth, and the ways of celebrating it are as many and varied as the cultures which this message of salvation permeates, from the drums of Zimbabwe to the lyres of the ancient Middle East. And so the psalm goes on and says, "Make a joyful noise to the Lord, all the earth, burst forth in the joyous song, and sing praises." Sing praises to the Lord with the sound of the lyre. With the lyre and the sound of melody, with trumpets and the sound of the horn, make a joyful noise before the King, the Lord. 200 years ago, this year, this very Christmas, a new means of celebrating was offered, a new song for the English-speaking world. It's the one we just sang right before this message, Joy to the World. Isaac Watts first wrote that song as a paraphrase of this very psalm, Psalm 98. And its refrains that the Lord is come, let earth receive her King. Oh, they're a wonderful response to the invitation of this psalm to sing to the Lord a new song, for he has done marvelous things. And yet through the decades, there is one verse of this song that he wrote that many hymnals have skipped and have not printed when they printed the song. It's the verse that says, "No more let sin and sorrows grow, nor thorns infest the ground, for he's come to make his mercies known, far as the curse is found, far as the curse is found, far as the curse is found." It seems the critique and the reason why some hymnals have not included is because people don't like singing those words, far as the curse is found, quite so joyfully. And yet we just did. Let me tell you why. A number of years ago, the Wall Street Journal published an article that compared the emotional states of nations around the world based upon their inhabitants. And it was based on research by the World Health Organization and Harvard University Medical School. And this study revealed that people living in the United States might well be the saddest people in the world. And that's because they looked at the percentage of people who are suffering from depression or bipolar disorder, and people living in the U.S. ranked far higher than any of the other 14 major nations that they surveyed, at 9.6%. Nations that are struggling with ongoing wars, like Lebanon, scored higher. Nations struggling with widespread unemployment, like Mexico, scored higher. Nations that are dealing with profound poverty, like Ada's home country of Nigeria, scored higher. And the article reflected on that and said it's likely because Americans living in the U.S. are so comfortably wealthy in comparison with the rest of the countries in the world. Because nations that are facing social and economic issues of that scale, their people don't have time and energy to fret about the loss of personal gains or personal ambitions, the way people do in the United States. This is all just to say that we live in a land that needs an infusion of joy. True joy. Not the kind of joy that you can get from personal luxuries you buy with money, but joy that will sustain you when you have nothing else. Psalm 98 has us singing with that kind of joy. His right hand and his holy arm have worked salvation for him, says the psalm. Now, when do you raise your right hand and your holy arm? You do it when there's a victory, don't you? I don't know if the NBA or college football or college basketball will be on your TV this holiday season, but it's when our team is behind in the score and it's getting late in the game, but pulls a comeback win in the last minutes. That's when your right hand goes up in joyous celebration, doesn't it? But when those like us, who live with the comforts of many material possessions, look at our lives, we don't see ourselves as those needing that kind of a comeback win. Because by our scorekeeping, we're already ahead. That's what makes it hard for people in America to experience the true joy of Christ. Because to experience the true joy of Christ, you first have to realize that you've lost the game. And that's what makes the verse about the curse so instrumental in joy to the world. Because it's an echo of Genesis chapter 3, verses 18 and 19, which talks about the fall of humanity and how this curse has spread and affected everything because of humanity's fall into sin. And so it affects every future person that would ever live, you and me, and is spread throughout the whole of God's creation. Sin and sorrow are growing in this world because of me, because of you. And we are the ones who brought this curse upon God's perfect creation. In Romans chapter 8, verse 20 and 21, Paul says that the whole creation was subject to futility, not willingly, but by the will of him who subjected it. We should be pointing our fingers at ourselves when we read that. But then Paul goes on to talk about how the creation also lives in hope. And hope that it will be set free from its bondage of decay into the freedom of the glory of the children of God. That is a comeback victory. That's a comeback victory in Jesus. When Psalm 98 talks about the right hand and holy arm of our God, it's not talking about just a gesture. It's talking about Jesus. Jesus is the right hand of our God. He's our God's holy arm. And God has worked salvation in him. That salvation was a comeback win, and we see that comeback win playing out in Jesus' own life. I mean, it looked like he was way behind in the score already before he was born, when there wasn't even room for him in the inn. And then, within a couple of years, the king was trying to take his life. And then, in the prime of his life, it looked like he had lost the game when the Jewish leaders found a way to cut him down because they convinced Pontius Pilate, the governor at the time, to put him to death on a Roman cross. But 3 days into overtime, 3 days into overtime, the creation started to quake. You can read about it in Matthew chapter 28, verse 2. The earth started to quake because it knew he had won the comeback victory. He had been raised from the dead. And the Psalm 98 sings about it. The creation sings about it. The seas roar and all that fill it. The rivers clap their hands. The hills sing together for joy before the coming back of this king. And then the psalm ends. The king will come to judge the earth. He will judge the world in righteousness and the peoples with equity. So suddenly this song that is a prayer of praise for Christmas begins anticipating and praying and looking ahead to the return of this king. He is coming back, which makes this not just a prayer for Christmas, but Psalm 98 is a prayer that encompasses the whole of God's salvific work in Jesus, from his first coming to his final return. And that's also what's really interesting about Isaac Watts' new song about this, Joy to the World. It's interesting that we sing it as a Christmas carol, because Mary and Joseph are never mentioned in it. There's not a verse in it about angels singing. There is no manger. There are no shepherds. There is no swaddling clothes. There's no mention of Bethlehem. Isaac Watts himself will be surprised that we only sing it on Christmas. The only hint of Christmas in it is the celebration that the Lord is come. Isaac Watts never expected this to be a song only sung at Christmas. And so it's a good song to sing today. It's a great song to sing tomorrow. But let it top your Billboard list the whole year long. Sing this new song. Make a joyful noise to the Lord. Joy to the world. The Lord is come. Let earth receive her King. I keep referring to this as a new song. Well, compared to Psalm 98, which was written 2,500 plus years ago, this 200-year-old song by Isaac Watts is a new song. And not only that, it's a new and lasting song because of who it's about. The Lord has done marvelous things. So this new song makes a great way for you to make Psalm 98 your prayer for Christmas.